So we're looking through the papers with Vicky and with Michael, and of course concentrating primarily on the situation in Ukraine. And the front of the Independent, Vicky, as they say, the fingers point at Putin, which they do, but we know a lot of this happened. It's an awfully graphic picture in a way. A lot of it happening in vegetable fields, in sunflower fields here. I mean, in what would otherwise be sort of quite pretty scenery.
It would. I think this is a really harrowing picture. This is just a local guy from the surrounding Ukrainian villages covering up bodies with a sheet, and I think that picture really sums up what a far cry this is from the treatment we would want of a crime scene like this. In an ideal situation, it would be, you know, cordoned off with security tape, and the person performing that act would be one of the forensic team, you know, and yet we've got sort of locals wandering in. Some people are alleging that some locals are coming in and just tampering with things, taking things, walking off, and it's just heartbreaking, really, especially for the relatives of these people. You would, you know, if it was us, we would want our loved ones to be in a secure zone where, you know, everything was being done to protect and identify the bodies, and yet this is the situation that we have on our hands.
It's, some of the pictures, it's like there's a weird normality going on around it, and you know, with Stuart Ramsey out there talking to locals as well, there's a war going on there. There's locals walking around as if, you know, it's just normal life, and then there's a disaster in the middle of it, and all this is just in the still pictures. It just looks so weird and normal almost, but with these horrific things happening in between it. But it's clear that normal life is going on in those war-torn areas at the same time. So it's just such a bizarre collection of circumstances that are all happening at the same time.
I really feel for those locals as well, because like you say, they're already in the middle of a war zone, and there's just a terrible story in one of the papers about a lady who said that a body actually fell through her roof. I mean, how traumatic must that be for someone who's already, you know, terrified by the sound of shelling and gunfire and living in this war zone? And I'm actually really impressed by the way these people have responded. There's so many volunteers out there at the moment in these sunflower fields, just going through. They're placing flags with white pieces of cloth on for every body they find. And it's a horrific scene. I mean, you know, they're saying it's just incredibly gruesome. So for these poor people in a war-torn area, much respect and gratitude for the volunteers that are working on the ground.
There doesn't seem to be anywhere that can enforce this zone around it.
Yeah, it's 20-kilometre zone.
It just seems as though it's ridiculous. It's just words again.
What are the Times saying this morning?
Well, there was just talking about the two theories that they say were not always compatible about who shot it down. And they said the first is the most likely is that the airliner was shot down by mistake by a Cossack unit that pulled a trigger because it only had one of two radars that it should have. The other, they said the other theory was that the rebels decided to escalate their fight against Ukrainian and foreign aircraft and did it deliberately. That's been discounted, according to the Times. They say that they needed two radar, one a scanning radar which determines what else is in the sky, and a battle radar that identifies it. They didn't have that one, and it just appears that they've shot down the wrong one, is what the intelligence is. And they're saying that these Cossacks, many of them appear to still inhabit the 19th century, and alongside them, trigger-happy veterans of the Chechen and Georgian wars. Something like this is going to happen. Give them this sort of technology.
Which is where the finger of pain, of blame pointing at Putin for that, which it seems clear that, or at least very likely that weaponry would have come from Russia.
And there's already footage that seems to show this missile launcher being slipped back over the border into Russia, which, again, points the finger.
Let's change tack slightly and finish off on some slightly lighter news, because there are other things going on, and the Sun reflecting, Vicky, on the first birthday of Prince George. And in fact, the Mail has got a lovely picture of him as well.
Yeah, it is quite heartwarming. Nice. I think when the news is so full of tragedy as it is at the moment, with obviously the crash and then Gaza, there is a need to have something, I think, to just remind us that things are good in the world as well as bad. And George celebrating his first birthday. The story I picked was it's actually in the Sun, and it's their royal photographer, and he's penned a letter to George on his first birthday. And I think it actually does sort of make me reflect a little bit on the tragedy as well. It's about sort of seizing the moment, you know, carpe diem, making the most of your life. And I think reflecting on the fact that so many lives have been lost, this is quite meaningful to sort of think of a child turning one. And this letter talks about all the things that George has in his future, the highs and lows that are likely ahead of him, and the need for him to really live a full life. And it's a beautiful thing for a royal photographer to do, someone that's shared so many of these moments. So it's quite moving, definitely worth a read if you happen to have
medals.
Copy a bit lying around.
The crown.
But it's actually a bit more it's more realistic than that. It's saying that, you know, there'll be no special classrooms for you.
There will be no special classrooms. You'll go to school, albeit a posh private school.
They talked about the fact that he might be lonely, or he might be, you know, he might be sort of afraid of the big weights that are going to be resting on his shoulders, but that he can rise up and know that everybody's supporting him.
Yeah.
Nice, sweet.
Yeah, it's heartwarming, I think.
Well, Arthur Edwards is someone who knows exactly what is going on with the Royals, doesn't he? So followed them for 4 decades or more. Lovely. Guys, we're out of time today. I know it's been a difficult day to go through the papers because it is, with the very nature of things, all pretty grim today, but thank you very much indeed. The weather has been